You're listening to the KB Podcast Network.
Coming up on this episode of the Kingdom Bringer podcast.
I think for them that was very different than what they were used to. It wasn't religion and just dead works. It was actually like the power of God and the presence of God. And so I'm not sure if that answered your question, but it's really hard to think that we are worth it and that we're worthy of pouring money into and giving into. Feels like they're not good enough and they don't have a family and they don't have a father and they don't have people that love them. Listen to me. You are good soil. Write it down. I want you to write it down on a Sharpie, on your hand, on your paper, wherever you need to write it. You are good soil. Are you recording already? Because sometimes you just get started and I'm like, no.
I record everything. You should know that. I've been recording this all day.
Stop it.
All day. It's been a big, giant record session.
You're so obnoxious. Darin's not wearing any pants.
Ah,
it's really awkward.
Dang it.
It's so awkward.
She's like, stranger danger, stranger danger.
You never want to be on his podcast because he doesn't wear pants.
That's why we're behind a table. Like a news anchor. Haven't you heard about that? Those news anchors don't wear pants either. They wear like shorts and stuff. You just see from top up.
That's how I am though. When I even on my Facebook lives that I did, I had just the front part of my hair down and the back was in a ponytail and I had a really pretty shirt on and then I was wearing gym shorts.
Wow. Behind the scenes. Behind the scenes of supernatural living. I like it.
I'm going to have to get a hold of his thing and just swipe it all up.
How embarrassing. I can't believe you shared that with us.
I hate you right now.
I can't believe you just shared that with the whole world.
I'm not talking anymore until you delete all of that. Delete it all. Start over.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Bringer podcast. I'm your host, Darin Eubanks. I am sitting alongside the one, the only, Bethany Packard. Beth Packard of Supernatural Living Podcast. What's going on, Beth?
Oh, not much. Just giggling with you.
What are you doing here in Dodge City?
Well, visiting my awesome friends. Darin and my son, Luke, are in Africa right now, telling people about Jesus. It's been crazy awesome. Really good. They've seen so many signs and wonders and miracles. That's what they were going for, and that's what they're seeing. And Luke shared today that he prayed for, I think it was a younger boy that was lame, and he started walking around and hearing, just deaf ears opening up and things that he's doing on his, he's 13 and he's going after it and seeing it right before his eyes, just miracles. And so it's exciting as a mom. It's, I know he left as a boy, boy, and he's going to come home as a man. And it's just, I try not to cry when I think about it, but it's definitely been a trip of a lifetime and a big change. So I'm excited.
So is that his first real mission trip?
Yes.
Like first one ever?
First one ever. Yeah.
Nice.
He hadn't flown before or
really
obviously left the country. So it was a big deal. He was really, just flying was a big deal. He was asking me so many questions about it. And I'm like, you need to be asking questions about Africa and like what it's going to be like there too, because
no joke.
The flying will be over and you'll be like, oh, I didn't get any information about the rest of this. So
for him, was there like an excitement or was it anxiety or was it both? Like as a mom, what'd you experience with him doing that for the first time?
He just had a lot of, like I said, just questions about flying. And he's scared of heights. And so he was excited for the adventure, but just, I don't know, he's just open to it. He knew the Lord had called him. And so he knew that whatever happened there on the ground was going to be amazing and God was going to work through him. And I think he's just had a great time sharing. I've talked to him every day, and he's gotten to tell me all the neat things that they've been doing, and I'm excited to hear more in detail as they get home. But
So talk to me a little bit about that. I've shared with you earlier that I just do not have a heart or a passion. I think a heart is probably the wrong words, because I have a heart for that, because I have like the heart that the Lord gave me.
yeah,
I don't have a passion or really a desire to do much with overseas missions.
mm-hmm.
Is that something I know you and Aaron have been? Is
Yeah.
it the same place that you guys went to? Where they're at now?
No, it's a couple of countries away in
Okay.
Africa. So
You've been there. Is that something you've ever dealt with? Did you have a heart for that? Or is that something
I
that you...
remember as a kid always thinking it would be really amazing, but never actually thinking I would do it. And so I remember we had missionaries that would come to our church, and, my dad was a pastor. And so they'd stay with us, and we'd get to hear their stories. And I would be like, wow, like in a faraway land, like it wasn't even a real place, like these places that they were coming from. And so it was always just like such a big world. And like I'd never experienced that. And so I guess I had kind of fantasized about it, if that's the right word. Like I had thought, in a perfect world, maybe I'll do that one day. But when we got to go last year, it was kind of like something I thought would never happen coming true. And so it was just real surreal. And the whole experience, I was like that, kind of just like, it was hazy. And like, I'm like, is this really happening? And to just have my feet on the ground in Africa, like, is so, still, I think back and I'm like, did that really happen?
Wow.
Like,
that's cool. I went to Mexico when I was 17 years old when we went to Mexico. I was going into my senior year of high school. I remember that. And that was my first experience, like going out of the country, first experience of like, the missions stuff. We had a mime team.
Nice.
That my
I can
sisters,
see you miming.
I was the tech guy. I was like the videographer.
Love it.
But my sisters were in this mime team and stuff. And so we'd travel and we'd just kind of set up a little deal and perform, and we'd spend all day handing out stuff to get people to come to these events. And
that's awesome.
It was okay. It was a little different. Like for me, the language issue is an issue for me.
Yes.
And so we had all these, classes we took beforehand to try to get as much Spanish as we could, and I'm just not a big foreign language. I just have a hard time with that. I can barely speak English most of the time. So that was very difficult. Like there was one time when I got to preach a little bit and give my testimony, and I wasn't used to that whole
the
translator thing. And it kind of just, I don't know. It was very difficult for me to like minister in that environment. It was fun to be a part of the team and like, do video and record everything, but I don't feel like I could be myself in that environment very well. I don't know. Did you guys experience any of that?
We didn't have that necessarily, because in Kenya, they speak English as well as Swahili. And so like almost everybody understood English. Obviously it was a different, not dialect, but like just different. And they talked really fast. And so it was like an accent and fast. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. Like, let me process.
A lot of missed words there, I'm sure.
Yeah. But that was one of the helpful things, was the fact that they spoke English. I can't imagine what it would be like to not be able to communicate in any way other than like charades with someone.
Yeah.
And so that would put a whole nother level of like, I don't know what even the word is, just kind of like, you like trying to culturally like connect. So I understand that. But when they speak English, it was like they were so much like us. I was actually kind of shocked how similar they were. And even where we were in the city, like the country of Kenya is so much like Kansas. And so like the weather was the same, their agriculture is similar. And so I was like, this is a lot like home. Like they were shocked by that. They're like, really? America's like here? And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, where I live.
They probably only see like New York City and LA and the movies. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't want to talk too much about that. I want to get into you, but at the same time, you've been there and experienced it. I want to talk a little bit, because I know Aaron and Luke are both experiencing like amazing things right now, the signs and wonders and just hordes of people are showing up to these
Yes.
crusades. Talk real quick about what you experienced in regards to the signs and the wonders in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
why it's so prevalent, and why it's different than what we really experience here in America.
I would say more than anything, they weren't real familiar with like our stream and what we carried. They had, they were Christians and they had heard the gospel, but they'd never seen the power. And so when the power showed up, the power of the Holy Spirit, and they were seeing people actually set free and healed,
Yeah.
they were like all over it. They were loving it. And like, it was like seeing the gospel through a whole new lens and just being opened up to like that amazing part of the gospel that so much of the church is missing out on because they don't believe in healing and they don't believe in this stuff. And I don't really understand that because I grew up in a home where we believed in healing and we believed the Bible for what it says as truth. And so I don't understand that, but I've been around plenty of people who don't understand it. And so when we saw those signs and the different miracles that took place there, and even just the presence of God that we carry, they could tangibly feel the presence of God. And I think for them, that was very different than what they were used to. It wasn't religion and just dead works. It was actually like the power of God and the presence of God. And so I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, it does. Do you feel like the presence of God manifests greater there?
Possibly.
Because I've communicated with people. We talk about overseas stuff. We talk about certain places on the globe that definitely experience a presence of God in a different way than we're used to.
I believe they're used to the spirit world.
Yeah. They're more in tune with that.
Yes. They understand darkness because there's so much witchcraft and so much darkness there that they understand the light and they get it and they see it. Whereas in our country, it's more gray. Everything's just kind of gray. And they don't even understand, like people don't realize that manipulation is witchcraft. Here in the States, they don't get that when we manipulate and when we try to get our way, like you're walking and you're doing witchcraft.
Wow. Yeah.
And so they get that there. And so, they see the light, they see the opposite of it, and they're willing to turn from darkness. They're after, we are people who are called to be powerful. Like God has instilled that in us, but we're to be using his power and his authority to take back dominion of the earth. And so they're trying to find that power wherever they can find it. And in most places, they're only finding that in the demonic.
Yeah, that's good.
And so if they can find it, the true power of God in light, they're going to choose light. Everybody's looking for that. That's
they understand bondage.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you see it. I've never been there, but I've seen videos and I've seen the pictures and I've seen these crusades that you guys go on where there's just so much demoniacs and there's so much of this oppression when people show up who have been experiencing, like you said, darkness their whole life. They're born into this stuff. And why do they show up? Why do they show up to a Christian meeting?
I believe that there are a lot of, I don't know, I would say a lot of them are coming to see if they can see whose power's stronger, really. I mean, the witch doctors, they're showing up, they're putting curses on the crusade grounds, they're putting curses on the, whatever, and they're finding that we carry a power that's stronger than their curse.
Wow.
And that we can break that curse. And when they see holy, like what I just cursed them about, like it's not even phasing them.
Wow.
Like nothing's happening. They're not backing down like others do who have come in Jesus's name, others who have come saying they're with, they're seeing there's something different about these guys. And I know that there was a video that I watched of a witch doctor being brought before Charlie, and Aaron was there, and he just read his mail. This is the story that I heard, so I hope I'm getting the facts right, but like he prophesied, or got words of knowledge about him and shared things that were going on, and the guy like was just astounded by the fact that he knew these things about him, and he ended up getting set free from some of that junk and ended up giving his life to the Lord. And so
Wow.
to me, like, that shows you that it's not that people don't want Jesus. Like, all of creation is groaning and they're desiring him. He is the desire of the nations. But what the church as a whole has been giving them and showing them isn't Jesus at all. It's religion.
Yeah.
And nobody wants religion. They want the truth, the life, that's going to set them free. And so when people encounter the true Jesus and his power, they're like, give it to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I want it.
Yeah.
And so we've had some backlash and just junk coming against us for like, why are you going to Africa? Why are you doing this? Why are you spending thousands of dollars? And I kind of had a moment on Facebook today where I just I got irritated with it because I want people to hear our hearts. Like, these are people that know us and love us that are saying these things. And I understand that they just are confused and they don't understand, but I wish they would just ask, because here I'm going to tell you why. We spend thousands of dollars to go there because we carry the power of Jesus Christ, like it talks about in the Bible, the real dunamis power, wonder-working power. And we want to share the real power with the world. We want to show them that Jesus is powerful, that he is the most powerful. He is the King of Kings, all of them. There's nobody above him, and that he can heal the sick, and he will heal the sick, and he'll use us to do it.
Yeah.
And so we go there to show them that power. And if one person gets saved, it's worth out. What's the amount that you would put on a salvation? Like, how could you even do that?
Right.
But we watched on the live video, I don't know. I don't even know how. There were so many people, and they're like,
of people. Yeah.
Yes, they're like, how many of you for the very first time? They made it very clear, the very first time you are surrendering your lives to Christ.
Yeah.
Raise your hand, and you just see the sea of people, hands raised all over it, and I've questioned it before. I have questioned it before, but when I was there and I watched them weeping and falling under the power and the presence of God, wow, you can't deny that. You can't deny that God was touching them, that the Holy Spirit was touching them in that moment. And even if that's it, even if that's the only time that they feel the presence of God, that is worth it. They will never forget that. They will never, ever forget what Christ did for them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were talking about the religion side of it. I feel like that's why I get so easily frustrated with the church, because we're so okay with Sunday morning, maybe feel goods, we can do, to be honest with you, there's so many, I've experienced so many churches that can either do with or without Jesus. If he showed up on Sunday, it would actually be okay or not.
Right.
As long as we have the offering plate pass, and as long as we have the songs, and as long as we have a message that makes me feel a certain way that I can get excited about, then I'm okay with that. And again, I talk about how I've never really had a passion for overseas ministry, but there's something about the idea of experiencing the presence of God and experiencing a hunger that I've personally never experienced in the American church. I have not experienced a hunger to where hundreds of thousands of people are showing up for a knowingly Christian crusade because they want to see a greater power than they've experienced.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about Aaron's going to Pakistan soon. When is that?
October.
He's going to Pakistan, and I think we're talking about Robbie Dawkins and some prayers that he has said. Repeat that for me.
Oh, I heard him talking about being on an airplane, and he was sitting by a Muslim man, and my dad and I were talking about this morning about what our culture thinks of the stereotypical Muslim what they're like. And I'm like, Dad, no, I know people who know people, who really know, like the crusade director, his heart, his people, his tribe is the Muslims, and he loves them. And I watch him pour out his heart for them. And he's just like, we're all searching. We're all so much alike. We're all just searching for, like that highest power. And anyway, Robbie Dawkins tells a story of, I believe he was on an airplane and he was sitting next to a Muslim man and something was wrong. He got a word of knowledge about something that was wrong with him. And he said, listen, I'm a Christian. I understand you're Muslim, he says, can I just kind of do a little experiment? And, the guy's like, yeah, sure. And so he prays for this man. And he, at the end of it, he said, he like ends the prayer in Muhammad's name. Like
Wow.
Instead of Jesus's name, he says, he's trying to heal him in Muhammad's name and nothing happens. And he says, now give me just a second. Like, can I pray for you one more time? And he prays for him another time. And he says, like, okay, now I command this shoulder or whatever it was to be healed in Jesus' name. And immediately the presence of God touches him and he's healed. And the guy's sitting there going, whoa, like you can't deny that.
Yeah.
There's nothing to deny in that instance. And so we have to walk in such an authority. We have to walk not just in the power, but in the authority of Christ and know not just who we are, but who, like what we're called to do. And he sent, in Mark, Jesus sent them out. He gave them all authority. He gave the disciples of Christ all authority to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead. That's what we carry. And so we've got to be sharing it with the world, and the world will come flocking in.
Yeah.
They will come flocking in when they know that power.
I just feel like God's actually okay with being the greatest.
Right.
Like Jesus is okay with being the King of Kings and
Right.
the Lord of Lords, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, we can say that we're testing him in that.
Yeah.
But I think he's okay. I think he's okay with us proving that he's the greatest thing out
Well,
there.
and that's a radical faith.
Yes.
We have to have I don't know. Like, I want to think I have enough faith to do something like that, but it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's none of our work. That's putting Jesus right there in the spotlight, and it's all glory, all honor goes to him. Nobody else. Just Jesus.
Yeah.
So he gets it all.
And
every time.
so he actually has to show up and prove that,
Yeah.
right? Like we can say it all, all we want.
Right.
But if he doesn't show up, then we're not right.
Right.
Then we actually don't serve a God who's greater.
That's right.
If he doesn't show up. So I think he's okay showing up. I think he feels okay being put to the flame and put to the test in that way.
Absolutely.
He actually wants to restore things. That's cool. So enough of talking about your husband and his endeavors.
I know, right? He's going to be like, why did you have a whole podcast about me?
If we're going to talk about him, let's talk about something besides missions. Let's talk about all the dirty stuff.
There isn't any.
Of husband. He's such a sweetheart.
We
love you, Aaron. Come home. Let's talk about Beth. Let's talk about supernatural living.
Let's do it.
You have a podcast, Beth.
I do.
Did you know that?
I do. It's incredible.
Supernatural Living with Beth Packard is part of the KB Podcast Network. And talk to me real quick. Talk to us about your heart behind the podcast. Why did you start that? Except for the fact that I forced you to.
Well,
why did you start this podcast?
You cannot force me to do anything.
Hey!
You were instrumental in it, but I just really love having a place to just share my heart and allow people to just really dive in. I have a heart for helping people move from boring Christianity, if you want to call it that, or what I would consider religion, into living a powerful life with Jesus, just rocking your world and actually like believing the stuff that's in the Bible and acting on it. And so I feel like this podcast is a great platform to do that, to help people know that, you know what, I am not some wild, I have not, I don't have any amazing schooling. I don't have, anything that the normal everyday Christian has, like I'm no different than anybody else. And yet I am willing and I've said yes. And the Lord uses that. And we each have a unique voice and we each have a unique calling, and just helping people understand that people need to hear what the Lord is doing in and through us. And so I use the podcast as an opportunity to just share my stories and share my heart and what God's teaching me. And I hope that it is just blessing the socks off of people and they're growing. I know I get, your socks are already off, Darin.
Hey.
It must be working. But I want to empower others, women, men, whoever's listening. Like, I want to empower them that they have a voice and that they are powerful and they need to use it for the right kingdom.
Yeah. And it's just one stream of ministry that you get to participate in. Share with us some other avenues where you're kind of gifted and have the opportunity to bless people. What's some other avenues that the Lord has kind of blessed you with in regards to ministry?
I have several of them. You're right. Aaron and I are the senior leaders at the Gathering Revival Center in Winfield, and we have all sorts of fun there leading our team. And I've got my own business that I run from home, and I've got a team of about 350 people that I lead as well. And whether they like it or not, I drip Jesus into everything we do, because he is my life, he's in me. He's all, all consuming. And so I do that as well and run that business from home. Homeschool my kids. That's a pretty big ministry. Like, I'm raising up and equipping disciples, essentially.
Yes,
like, my first one just went out into the nations. Wow. Like my oldest that I've homeschooled since he was itty bitty, he's always been home with me. And I would say that I must be doing a good job.
Yeah.
I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one, that he chose, that he wants to do. He wants to stay in the family business, and he wants to go. He'll be a third generation missionary pastor, like, I already know it. The call's there. He said yes, and there he goes. So to me, that's really powerful. I'm not even crying about it, but it's so incredible to see that taking place. Yeah. And then I've given myself a deadline of July 1st to get my very first book into the publisher.
Yay. Do you realize last time I had you on, I think it was episode 19, maybe? Does that sound right? Do you know? I don't know.
Maybe.
Episode 19, I think. And I don't think you'd started yet. Had you? Had you
Not
started
really.
writing yet?
I don't think so.
You were discussing getting the guts to actually move forward with this. Yeah. I don't think you'd started writing yet, but you are finished.
I am finished.
For the most part, you're done, right?
Just a few edits left and waiting on a couple of things, and then we'll get that processed. And 4 to 6 months from now, I will have that book in hand, and I'm just really excited. The people that have had the opportunity to read it have just been like blown away by what the Lord revealed to me during that process. And the whole book is about just that journey that the Lord took me on from religion and hating it, not wanting a dead religion that had no power, but what that looked like as I crossed over and bridged into a deep intimacy with Jesus. And so it's just some prophetic dreams that I had, and just me kind of that whole process, those years of my life where the Lord just took me through that. And it's a fast read. It's like a sit down, start it and finish it in the same night kind of a read. But to me, that's kind of how I am.
I doubt it.
Why?
I can't read that fast.
Yes, you can. You can read fast.
This one's different than every other book.
I challenge you. It's so good. You're going to read it in one night.
I'm going to read it, but it's not going to take me a day. I could read it in maybe a month if I put my mind to it.
No, I challenge you before every one of our listeners. I believe you can do it. It's going to be that amazing.
Whoa. Okay. I'm down. I think I shared this with you. I've never really had this podcast is all about you and what you're doing, and me and what I don't have a desire to do.
That's awesome, Darin.
You guys have gone overseas. I've never really had a passion for that. You've written a book. I've never really had a desire to write a book. I love writing. I do some writing. Doing a book just seems so daunting to me. Was this a daunting task for you?
It kind of was. And for me, like writing it, the initial writing was not hard. Reading it over and over and over again is so boring.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm editing it and I'm trying to make sure that like it's flowing the way I want it to flow. And just that part of the editing process is very daunting. And I think that's what most people never finish is that part.
Let me ask you a question. This might be like inside sports type question, but like when it comes to writing a book, let's just say for this one specifically, did you just write the whole thing and then chop it up into chapters, or did you think this is going to be chapter, this is going to be a chapter, this is going to be a chapter? How does that work?
I went to a writing conference before I ever decided to write a book, just because the Lord told me to. And I didn't even really want to write a book when I went to it, but I learned not to necessarily do it like that, but to kind of have an outline and to write the end first, which is weird. You think about it, but like, what's the end game? Like,
my wife reads the end of a book first before she decides if she wants to read it. Yeah. My wife is sitting right here in front of a microphone and she's covering her mouth so she's not heard. There, Jamie. But she's not even, the mic's not even plugged in, but she's sitting here right now. And I can tell you that I've seen her shop for books. And she opens up the back page and reads it and then puts it back if it wasn't interesting. I don't know how that works. That's not how I do things. But
Jamie,
anyway,
you better read my book from start to finish.
So since you started your book with the ending, it better be good. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is.
You better took your time with the ending of this book.
The end actually is my favorite part. I share probably the most profound prophetic word I've ever gotten right at the end, just smack dab.
And that actually makes sense for me. I can understand. It's kind of like, I guess you said that, the end game. Like it gives you something to shoot for, I think.
Yeah. Like cool. What do you want to accomplish? Because I had to have what is it I want my reader to accomplish by the time they get to the end? And so I ended with the most powerful thing I had, which I feel like everyone who reads my book now is going to skip to the end of it and read the last page because I just told
my wife will. She'll do that. No, like that totally, like I've never thought about that. Again, I've never even considered writing a book, but that makes sense to me because I think what I would really struggle with, I think this is why I've never wanted to do it. I think I would struggle wrapping it up. Like I would struggle with finding an ending. I do that with sermons. I do that with talking. I do, it's like, wrap it up, Darin, and it's, I understand how that would be a struggle writing. Like I can see myself stressing out. Like I cannot come up with a powerful ending, but go with it first. Get it over with.
Then you don't have to crash land that way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You've got it already set up.
And if the ending's like, let's be real, you want the ending to be great. Mm-hmm. You want the end of the book to be the best part, like you said.
Yep.
So you can kind of, so the first part of the book's not going to be very good, you said. The ending is awesome.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good.
What are some other things that you got going on, Bethany?
Oh, first of all, I haven't been called Bethany since college.
Since the last time you saw me.
Or maybe then. Okay. I'm not really sure. That's pretty time consuming.
That's it?
Oh, you know what? No. This is called the Kingdom Bringer podcast.
Yes.
I'm about to bring it, Darin.
Oh, snap.
Okay. So I was sharing this with you already, but I have been praying for like over a year, maybe even longer than that, I love the marketplace. I love business, and like that is where my passion and my heart is. But I was like reading all these business books and training, and like I have a degree in leadership studies, but like there was something in it that was always just kind of worldly and like had a twist of like that manipulation and like stuff that's not kingdom.
See, I've never really had a desire for, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I had to throw something at him, right, listeners?
Go ahead.
Okay, so like then I'm praying and I'm just asking the Lord, like, how can I purify this? How can I make my marketing and my, like what I do with my business pure and kingdom? And so I am telling the Lord, like, I need something. I need this, whatever, like, help me out. And I came across, I believe that the guy who started a movement just like this, he was tricked into it by the Lord, which I've been tricked into lots of things by the Lord. And so I totally get that.
That's awesome.
He was tricked into this last year around this time. And I'm wondering, like, I go back and I think, Lord, was this thing an answer to my prayer? And probably thousands of other people, like, an answer to my prayers. But it is a kingdom entrepreneurship, like, movement. It's a movement, and it is backed by some of the big name guys. It is so incredible. And it is like, he has spent hours, thousands of hours, like, training with worldly gurus, and learning all this stuff, but filtering out everything that's not biblical, everything that's not kingdom. And he has, like, established this huge community of, it's just this, like, kingdom family.
Wow.
And I ran into him, found an ad on Facebook back in March, and I've just, Aaron and I have just, like, been infiltrated into this, like, 12-month long mentorship program with it. And it is incredible. They're getting ready to, like, they're doing one last push up the last few days of June. And in July, they're, like, kind of shutting it off for 3 months. And they're just going to, like, pour into everybody who's just come in. And
That's
it's
awesome.
just, it's so exciting because, like, that is what I need. We can use it for ministry. We can use it for business. We can use it. It's just like hammering the religious spirit, poverty mindsets, orphan spirit, all that stuff that's held the church back and held Christians back for so many years. It's held them back, and he's just hammers away at it. There's prophetic in there, and they're, like, giving, just, like, prophetic insights into, like, how to help people in their business. And so I just, like, I'm serious. I'm, like, so on fire about this and so stoked that, like, I want to tell everybody about it. So this is a great opportunity. If you are kingdom minded, if you are looking for something like that, if you have a business, would like to have a business, have a desire to make, like, money to fund back into the kingdom, to help spread the gospel, if you want that, like, I'm gonna give Darin a link to post that he can share that with you guys, and you got to get in on this. It's happening soon, and they're shutting it off for a while, but there's so much, there's free resources, and then there's a paid mentorship as well. And it's just something that, it's just, in the first day, like, it was worth the money that I spent on it. It's been so incredible.
Well, let's talk about the money that you spent on it. You said something that I found very inspiring. You had talked about investing in yourself.
Yes.
And that's something that you have never really done. You didn't talk about that. Like, when you say that you've never really invested in yourself, what were you
financially?
Yeah.
Financially, I don't know that I've ever, other than that writing conference that I went to, which the Lord called me to do, I don't know. And it was hard. It's hard to invest in ourselves, I think. It's really hard to think that we are worth it and that we're worthy of pouring money into and giving into. And the very first video that I watched when I got into this program was about how they were talking about good soil and the soil that we need to sow into. And they were just hammering that orphan spirit that feels like they're not good enough, and they don't have a family, and they don't have a father, and they don't have people that love them. And they were hammering that away, and they were like, listen to me, you are good soil. You, listeners, are good soil. And you have to be willing to invest in yourself. Like, you have to be willing. God invests in us. He invests in us all the time. Our family can see that we're good soil, but sometimes we are like our worst critic, and we don't believe in ourselves, and we don't invest in ourselves. And so I was like, wow, it was just so much confirmation, because I told Aaron, I'm like, Aaron, I've been praying about this, and it was, I'll just tell you, it was $3,000. It was $3,000. And I'm like, we were raising money for the Malawi trip, and we've got Pakistan coming up, and we're, like, doing these things so beyond what we have the means for. And our faith is being stretched so much. Like, outrageously this year. And then I throw this $3,000 into it. And Aaron's like, okay, well, if you think so, like, let's be praying about how the Lord's going to work this out and how he's going to make this come to pass. And within, a month and a half's time, I get word of they're celebrating their 1-year anniversary, and they have marked that price down from $3,000 to $997.
Yeah.
And I saw it and I was like, Aaron, we have to. I said, I'll sell my car. I'll sell all the inventory I have from my business. I will sell it all. We have to do this. Like, I am so confident in this. And it was scary because I was basically saying, I believe in myself. I know the Lord has called me to this. I know. And then afterwards, I'm like, did I hear right? Am I sure I know?
Yeah.
Am I? And then the very first teaching and the first mentorship thing that I did on there was, you are good soil. You are worth it. You are worth this, and you're going to get such incredible value, and you're going to change so much. And they're just hammering away heart issues and just helping people to heal through junk that they've been taught and strongholds in our minds that we've just believed forever, and retraining us. Dan Muller always says, you were homeschooled in the wrong home.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying. We have so much stuff in us that's wrong mindsets that we have to get lined up with what the Bible truly says and what the kingdom really looks like. And so I'm so excited. I've listened to hours and hours and hours of stuff and just been so blown away. It's going to be exciting.
I think that's an amazing starting point when you realize that you can invest in yourself like that, especially for whatever reason. Financially is always the biggest investment, the hardest investment to make. But man, I would love to get to a place where I'm like, I know that there's no greater soil than me.
Right.
Like, I should be okay saying, I trust more than any other soil that's out there. Yeah. My wife and I have given to other ministries. We've sown seeds in other ministries that we quote unquote trust as good soil.
Mm-hmm.
What about this soil?
Yes.
I should believe that this is the best soil, right?
True.
Because I know my relationship with the Lord greater than I know anybody else's relationship with the Lord. And so it's official. We are giving $40,000 to me tomorrow.
Yes.
To this podcast. I trust the soil that is the Kingdom Bringer podcast. Honey, who's sitting right next to me. Thank you for the motivation, Beth.
You're welcome.
We take that as truth in Jesus' name. No, that's amazing though. It really is. And I feel like that's going to be a breakthrough moment for someone right now who has just been teetering on that. And I think the Lord gives passion and he gives desire to people that he trusts to carry things.
That's right.
But if they don't trust themselves and if they don't trust what they've got going on with the Lord, it's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. God desires to partner with us that much that he actually allows us to move or not, right? To go or not. And so, no, I think that's awesome. It's powerful to hear that you saw yourself as good soil. That sounds so elementary, like, doesn't it? Like I can preach that to you all day long, but I don't even believe it for myself half the time. And so getting to that place where it's like, man, this is good soil. Why? Because God is in it.
That's right.
The kingdom is in this. Yes. It's good soil. That's good.
I love it.
That's good. Well, everybody check out Supernatural Living with Beth Packard wherever you listen to podcasts. Google, Apple Podcasts. You're on Spotify. You're on YouTube. Check out bethpackard.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Supernatural Living on Facebook. Is that right? Like always, we're going to have all this in the show notes. Anything else out there that you want the people to know about what you are doing, what this good soil that I'm looking at right now is doing?
I think I summed it up.
How can people sow into that good soil? Look at that. That was a great, wasn't that awesome transition?
Yes.
How can people sow into this soil the same way you've sown into it?
I think I'm just feeling the Holy Ghost here.
Okay.
I think they should sow into themselves.
There you go.
I think you should sow into yourselves. I'm going to give Darin a link. I want you guys to follow this link. And if you are a kingdom person, which I'm not sure why you'd be listening to the Kingdom Bringer podcast.
Yes.
If you weren't a kingdom-minded person, I want you to sow into yourselves on my behalf.
Yes.
If that's what you want to do on my behalf, go to this link, check out this site, this acceleration, this 100x acceleration, and go look it up. Go ask the Lord, is this something you want me to sow into? And sow into yourselves. Sow into your good soil. It's not about me. It's about a movement. It's about the Lord raising up entrepreneurs, raising up kingdom-minded business people. It can be in the church. It can be in the marketplace, but raising up, he needs kingdom-minded people to have his money. The world has money right now, but the kingdom needs the money to fund these crusades, to fund these things, to fund missions around the world, to help people get out of human trafficking, the sex slave, like all this stuff. The kingdom needs this money. It's being used for evil right now. Money is not evil. The love of money is evil. And they are raising up an entire movement of people that are kingdom-minded, that are pure in heart, that love the Lord with everything they are. And they need money coming in, abundance of wealth coming in to sow back into the kingdom. And so I am encouraging you right now. In fact, I just declare over you, you are good soil. Listen to me. You are good soil. Write it down. I want you to write it down on a Sharpie, on your hand, on your paper, wherever you need to write it. You are good soil. And I want you to pray and then just say yes to sowing into yourself. Join us in this movement. Join us in this thing. It is going to be, it's just going to be so powerful. It's so powerful.
Man, I think this is so awesome because the whole basis of this podcast specifically, this whole network of podcasts specifically, is that the kingdom lives inside of you.
Yes.
The kingdom is inside of you. So hearing this, why do I feel like I feel like we're on one of those TV shows, like with what do you call those, where you're like, call in right now. And
Yes.
That's so awesome though. Like, I feel like it has the same spirit behind it. It's awesome. So this isn't about this is not a worldly podcast where we're saying that you deserve this. Right. We're not preaching like, man, I deserve this. No, the kingdom deserves this.
Yes.
Like the kingdom inside of me deserves this. I wouldn't be sowing into me if it wasn't for the kingdom inside of me.
That's right.
And so I think that's important for people to hear and know. And that's all I'm hearing from Beth right now is like the kingdom deserves you sowing back into yourself because Jesus did.
Yes.
Jesus gave everything for you.
Right. That's right.
The least we can do is actually see ourselves as worthy of that.
That's right.
That he didn't do it for nothing. He did it because we are worthy of this.
Yes.
And so, yes, right now, Beth gave you permission to sow into yourself, to sow into the kingdom that God absolutely cares about inside of you. And so, man, we just, I echo that and I say yes and amen to that. That's awesome. And there will be a link in the show notes. You guys can check it out and follow her instructions right now. She's leading this charge. So thank you. That's awesome. So check it out again. Supernatural Living podcast. Try to have new episodes every Tuesday. Anyway, thank you guys. Beth, thank you for coming on again.
Thank you.
You're amazing. I love hearing what you guys are doing in Winfield, Kansas at the Gathering Revival Center, in Africa, through books, through podcasts. You're international now, girl.
Oh, yeah.
This is an international ministry. That's so good. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again to the Kingdom Bringer podcast. Check us out on Facebook at KB Podcast. Go on Apple Podcasts if you can and give us a 5-star rating. Give us a review. Rate, review, subscribe, and share this episode to all of your friends. You should have more friends now because friends are sowing into themselves because of what Beth said on this podcast. So we are sowing into ourselves because the kingdom is amazing. It's powerful. We love you guys. Do not forget to check out the other podcasts on the KB Podcast Network, the Two Brothers Podcast with Jason Getz and Chris Hagan, and the Supernatural Living Podcast with Beth Packard, both on the KB Podcast Network, and you can find them at various platforms. Whichever one you listen to, you can find them. They're in the show notes as well. And please go visit kingdombringer.com. There you can find the Kingdom Bringer blog as well as easy access to the podcast. That is it. Until next time, be blessed.